You're listening to the How to Prosper webinar series, podcast number 5, on everything you need to know about small business owners. My name's Alex Bragudak, National Partnerships Manager of Prospa, the trusted online lender for small businesses in Australia. I'm here with Ben Lyons, Prospa's National Business Development Manager, and we're going to be talking about how brokers can better understand small businesses. Now, it might sound like we're preaching to the converted. What I mean is that many brokers are actually small businesses themselves. However, we're all guilty of not taking the time to reflect and truly understand the unique challenges faced by various industries, and that as humans, we all behave differently, come from different backgrounds, have different strengths and weaknesses, which ultimately drives very different outcomes. It's never a one-size-fits-all. So we'll be discussing some of the myths surrounding starting a small business and looking at how common assumptions can get in the way of success. All of this will help you identify some of the key challenges faced by small businesses so you can improve your offering and provide them with better solutions.
It's a big topic, Alex. Whichever way you cut it, small business is a hard game. Thousands of small business owners here in Australia work long hours for average returns. They often earn the same or less as they would in a regular job. The only difference is they have a whole lot more financial risk and responsibility.
And for many people, that's a best case scenario, isn't it? Making an average income or return. Unfortunately, it's more common to see small business owners drifting into the red and going belly up than surviving and thriving and expanding their operations. The most recent figures I've seen show the majority of small businesses cease operating 3 years or less after starting up. That's 60% according to the ABS.
So today we're going to be talking about how small businesses grow and what this means for your offering towards small business owners, how you can help them grow. Specifically, we'll be looking at statistics around the small business market, including size and growth, the failure rate of small business, and the reasons why so many businesses fail. We'll be exploring the 3 types of small business owners as they move through the stages of running a small business, the challenges small business owners face, like cash flow management. We'll be chatting about some common factors in small businesses that succeed, and importantly, how you can get to know your small business customers. We'll then look to how brokers can help small business owners overcome their challenges and how you can go beyond the expectations of your small business clients to truly add value. Finally, we'll explore the future of the small business industry and what this means for the future of your broking practice.
And we'll be sharing our own personal perspectives and tapping into the knowledge of the many people in the Prospa network. That includes our brokers and some of the 8,000 business owners we've built relationships with since we opened up our own small business 4 years ago. We've drawn on that collective wisdom to develop today's webinar, and we hope it leaves you with some additional insights into small business today.
Because developing a better understanding of how small business owners work can help you build your own business. After all, it's always easier to do business with people you understand. Small business is often said to be the backbone of the Australian economy. So let's take a quick look at whether that still holds true. Statisticians use a measure called industry value added. This allows them to calculate the contribution that private businesses make to the country's gross domestic product. Small businesses contributed just under a third of the total industry value added to the economy in 2013 to 2014. We're talking about a figure of $343 billion. That's a figure up by $8 billion on the previous year, which might suggest the small business sector as a whole hasn't been travelling too badly.
And Australia was home to 2.1 million businesses as of June 2015. The business entry rate, that is the amount of new businesses starting up, was 13% in 2014 to 2015. The business exit rate during that same period was 12%. So what sort of businesses are we talking about? What's hot and what's not when it comes to starting or running a small business?
We're a nation of builders, Alex. We have around 350,000 construction-based businesses operating in this country. When it comes to starting a new business, accommodation and food services were the most popular sectors in 2014 to 2015. Primary production, we're talking agriculture, forestry and fishing, was the least popular. So if we break down that small business industry value added figure we just mentioned, we can see that the big contributors were rental, hiring, and real estate services. They generated almost $54 billion. Construction generated a little less than $50 billion, and professional, scientific, and technical services generated $42 billion. Those industries are the real powerhouses of the small business sector. In terms of creating new jobs, Seek tells us that education and training, healthcare, building trades, IT, communications, design, and architecture were the sectors doing the heavy lifting in 2016.
So small business does add up to some really big numbers, and with that comes a wealth of opportunities for professionals in the finance sector to partner with small business owners on their growth journeys. Okay, so that's a picture of the actual businesses. Now let's have a look at the business owners themselves. We know from ABS data that 50% of small business owners are aged between 35 and 54. Only 19% are under 35, and the remaining 30% are over 55. In terms of a typical profile, well, there isn't one. Instead, there is diversity. Immigrants aren't under or overrepresented in comparison to the average Australian. Small business owners do have a couple of common characteristics worth pointing out. Firstly, they are comparatively better equipped with human capital, meaning they tend to be university educated and have prior business experience. And interestingly, the level of education doesn't impact the likelihood of the business to succeed, but the level of prior experience does. Almost exactly half of small business owners work in teams, just like Prospa with our joint CEOs Greg and Bo. That's double the human capital and double the experience. Overall, women are marginally underrepresented as founders of small businesses, and there are important differences in the types of businesses they start. Women don't tend to start a business in the construction industry or manufacturing, but they are much more likely than a man to start a business in retailing, health and social services, and education. Finally, small business owners are less likely to use debt financing to start their business, often drawing on the owner's household assets or savings for funding. This would likely be because startup funding is very difficult to obtain, and even cash flow lenders like Prospa require a minimum 6 months of operation, so there is cash flow to support loan repayments. And as you mentioned earlier on, Ben, it's not all smooth sailing in the small business sector. For every standout success story, there are plenty of strugglers. A report from UDS actually estimates that 1 in 3 small businesses in Australia fail in their first year of operation. 2 out of 4 fail in their second year, and a whopping 3 out of 4 cease operation in the 5th year. Now, we're going to take a look at what goes wrong and what results in small business owners throwing the towel in.
ASIC did some research into corporate insolvencies a few years back. They found that when it comes to businesses failing, there are 3 common threads. The first is poor strategic management. We're talking about people who may have a good idea but just don't have the operational or management skills that you need to grow a business. ASIC found this was an issue with 44% of the small business enterprises it studied. The research also found that 40% of failed businesses had inadequate cash flow or high use of cash.
And there's an old saying that cash flow is king, right? When you run out of money to pay the bills or wages, it signals dire time for your business. Having timely access to funds is the difference between flying and dying for thousands of small businesses. Trading losses were a problem for a third of the businesses researched by ASIC. Essentially, these businesses had too much cash going out on expenses and not enough coming in, especially in the early days of operation.
There are a lot of ways a startup business can come unstuck. Sometimes it's a matter of a poorly chosen location. Think about a fashionable cafe or restaurant in a suburb that's full of older people who don't eat out or don't eat that sort of food. Another issue might be the business offering itself. The offering may be something the business owner is passionate about, but it's too niche to get enough customers through the door and make it a viable business idea. This might be the vegan cafe that 90% of potential patrons walk past because they don't drink soy or almond milk, or the gift shop that just sells teddy bears. Or the business owner may have failed to take into account a trend that will impact on what they're doing, like a bricks and mortar clothing retailer who doesn't have an e-commerce store. Or the business owner may have failed to take into account a trend that can impact what they're doing, like selling cameras, when more than 70% of the first world now has a camera in their pockets disguised as a phone. However, just because you're selling something people want to buy, this doesn't mean you won't encounter problems either. For some small business people, winning work with big customers can be an enormously promising sign, until the payment terms start to squeeze them. If a couple of large organisations make you wait 90 days for payment, it's likely you won't have enough capital to keep things running in the meantime and pay your staff. And in that case, you're going to be in trouble. Then there are your late payers, a very common issue for small businesses and one that can lead to the same cash flow problem. Clients who pay their invoices late leave you with minimal cash to cover ongoing expenses, essentially too much money going out and not enough coming in.
And when talking to accountants and advisors who work with small businesses, you hear variations on those same basic themes, don't you? People starting out with unrealistic ideas of how much their businesses will make, how much capital they'll need to get started, and then they run out of money before they've had a chance to get properly established. Or you hear about people who are excited by the idea of doing their own thing, but who just don't have the training or the skills to make it work. Running a successful small business isn't just about having a great idea and getting customers in through the door. You're juggling a dozen balls at once, like human resources, payroll, sales and marketing, accounts, and even social media. And if you've never been in business before, you may need a crash course in all of those things. Now, when it comes to talking about business failure, it makes sense to take a step back and look at how small businesses typically start. What is it that propels people to give up the security of a guaranteed paycheck and go out on their own? Does it tend to be a well thought out decision where they've weighed the pros and cons and crunched the numbers? Or does impulse and timing play a big part? Does the reason why people decide to set up their own show have an impact on how well they'll go in the long run?
I'm going to refer to a framework I like to use called the entrepreneurial or E-myth. Basically, this refers to the theory that very often businesses fail because of the types of people who start them and tend to be subject matter experts or technicians rather than true entrepreneurs themselves. So for example, someone who loves making bread decides it makes sense to open their own artisan bakery. Or the hairdresser who has won a stack of awards for their creative styling decides to open their own hair salon. Or the guy who just loves the cafe lifestyle and avocado on toast, so he opens a cafe. In his writings, the E-Myth author, Michael Gerber, makes the case that small business people like our baker, our hairdresser, and our cafe owner aren't true entrepreneurs. Instead, he suggests they're often technicians or subject matter experts who make the mistake of thinking that because they're an expert in what their business does, they're going to be an expert in running a business that sells that product or service. Mostly times they're not, Gerber says. They end up being swamped by the day-to-day grind of running a small business rather than enjoying the freedom they'd hoped for to pursue their passion.
Of course, and this theory doesn't hold true for every small business owner. At Prospa, we come across plenty of people who know their stuff inside out and also have the skills they need to turn their expertise into a viable enterprise. We asked one small business owner in our network for a personal perspective on why she went out on her own, someone who's beaten the odds and made a real go of it. She's a small business owner whose communications company has had 300% growth year on year since she set up shop in 2014. She tells me the defining moment for her when she decided to set up on her own came when she realised she'd been integral to the growth of another business she'd worked in but wasn't going to see the fair share of the rewards. She decided it was time to have her own pie instead of a small slice of someone else's. Despite what sounds like very rapid growth, she says her success has come about as a result of following a fairly low-risk route. She's chosen her staff and her clients carefully, established herself in a sector she's already familiar with, and not bitten off more than she can chew. She also knows what she's good at and what she needs help with. She's got help with the admin and accounting side of things from day one, just a few hours a month in the early days. She says it doesn't do to underestimate the sheer weight of the admin work, and in her words, I'm responsible for the welfare of my staff. I'm responsible for reporting to the ATO, to ASIC, to my landlord, to my contractors. I'm responsible for professional indemnity, public liability, work cover, super, keeping the books in order, paying the bills, and the list goes on. What this means is that this small business owner recognised that running her own business and realising her dream of being her own boss was never going to be a walk in the park. It requires a keen sense of business to keep on top of admin and develop a strategy for growth.
While it might not be true 100% of the time, we can link the main reason small businesses fail to the E-myth theory. This lack of strategic management, of really understanding how to grow a business before you start your passion project. You need to remember, you're dealing with people who have a dream, and the reality is mostly not living up to the dream.
So what does the roadmap look like for small business owners? How can you tell if they're going to be a success or a statistic? Are there any distinct stages or landmarks along the road that are broadly similar for all small business owners?
Every type of small business owner is different, but talking to our small business client base, some common threads emerge. As with a new relationship, optimism and hope typically come first. The honeymoon phase, if you like, it's happy days when the dream of doing their own thing finally looks like it's coming true. Unfortunately, that wears off soon enough. Struggling to get to grips with what they've taken on starts pretty much immediately for most small business owners.
Look, I don't think I've ever encountered anyone who says it's been easier than they ever expected. Even people who have planned and have experienced inevitably find there are challenges and complexities they didn't anticipate or prepare for. For those who didn't plan enough or have a realistic idea of what they were getting into, disillusionment may set in at this point. Their projections of what they'd be turning over may have been overly optimistic. It's a whole lot more work than they expected. Managing staff can be challenging. There can be steep learning curves on lots of fronts. So does that mean it's sink or swim time?
For many small business people, yes, it is. It's a stage where you navigate your way through the challenges, seeking help with the things you don't know or you can't do for yourself, and getting on top of every aspect of the company. Or you don't, and that's when you start to see problems compounding. Issues with staff, problems with cash flow, bookwork not being done, or what have you. It can start to snowball, and before you know it, it's all way too hard. And that's when you see people selling up or shutting up shop.
There's a certain amount of stamina and persistence that seems to be necessary for small business owners who want to succeed. We spoke recently to a Prospa customer, a travel agent, who runs their own bespoke tour business. I was struck by the resilience they had to demonstrate, especially early on. In their words, there's been ups and downs. The first couple of years I had hardly any tours sold because I wasn't out there pushing it hard. I hadn't built up a database. It would have been easy to drop out at that point. I'm the sort of person who just gives anything a go. They also said, I just thought I'd give it a crack, and if it doesn't work, move on or reinvent. I guess from my background with the military, I picked up the discipline to not give up. It's really been about having a get up and go attitude. You've got to face the music and dance. You just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going.
It's people like this who are able to overcome those early issues, who are able to develop a mature business. One that operates efficiently and effectively, makes a profit and meets expectations. Those expectations are usually to keep growing, but it's worth noting that sometimes an owner may be more interested in maintaining a level of work and income that suits their lifestyle goals, so not going for global domination. It's also important to understand that it's all about the mindset of the business owner. They need to be committed to learning new things, be organised, and a sense of tenacity. These are just a few of the key traits that signal someone's going to be successful in small business. It's important to note some small business owners literally start with a mature business model. They might start a business purely because they see an opportunity to make money, not because they love the product or the service. They see a model they can grow and scale and make their fortune with, and they have no emotional attachment.
And to really understand the people we do business with, we need to know how they operate. The first step is to become familiar with the issues which cause them the most grief.
And there are quite a few of those. Preparing for this webinar, I spoke with Brian Carroll, a business coach who's worked with small businesses for the last 25 years. He says cash flow is by far the biggest stressor for small business owners. When small business owners are unable to predict when funds will be coming in, the worry often carries through to their personal lives. Learning to let go is something else many business owners find hard. More often than not, they've started their business as a 1 or 2 person band, which makes delegating tasks a real challenge, especially if they've poured their heart and soul and savings into starting the business. A florist who is still restocking ribbon and wrapping flowers while trying to manage admin and business growth will need to think about hiring a junior florist to help out with these everyday tasks. Of course, those who can't learn to do this are basically putting the brakes on. Businesses like copywriting, architecture, lawyers, and basically anyone with the services they sell at an hourly rate are limited by the number of hours they're able to sell or put into the business. This means their business cannot function in growth mode and they're destined to remain a sole trader operation unless they learn to outsource.
Which leads us to challenge number 3, recruiting the right people to help grow the business. This means outsourcing tasks which others could do and which are taking up time that could be spent more productively on building the business. Finding staff who have the right skills and capabilities and who fit with the business isn't always easy. For small businesses or sole traders, where perhaps the owners aren't used to recruiting and managing a team, it can be really challenging. They'll need to firstly interview the potential staff and may not be used to assessing someone's character. They might find the interview process nerve-wracking or ask the wrong questions. Down the track, they'll need to train and support the staff, and without formal processes, this could be a challenge.
Deciding which tasks to outsource and to whom can also be tough. Some jobs are pretty generic. It may be as simple as asking other small business people in your network to recommend a good bookkeeper. Other jobs like managing social media marketing can be harder to let go of and also riskier. Trusting someone who may not appreciate how a business operates or isn't on the same page about customer service and relationships can be a real gamble. There's a potential for what you've built to be damaged very quickly by an individual who doesn't understand the business or isn't invested in its success.
Now, we've talked a bit about the things that small businesses struggle with, so let's flip that around and take a look at some of the characteristics of small businesses which flourish. What do they typically have in common?
Talking this through with our business coach Brian, we came up with a few things. First is the financial factor. Business owners who are doing well have a good grasp on the money detail. Their finger is on the financial pulse, they have a good accounting system in place or a good accountant or bookkeeper, and they make measured decisions about how they invest their capital. A thirst for learning is a second quality Brian and I both noted. These people don't think they know it all. They're hungry for new ideas and want to learn smarter ways of doing things. Brian also brought up one of his clients who owns a very successful business in Melbourne in the health and safety sector. Brian describes his client as a voracious reader on business-related topics. He's continually looking to expand his knowledge and understanding of the dynamics of business and leadership. This feeds into the way he runs his own operation. There's an urge to keep improving himself and his business, which appears to be a characteristic of successful small business people.
And as we've mentioned before, they work on their business rather than in it. One of the small business owners we spoke to before this webinar began as a one-person operation. He would manage his clients' social media pages, write blogs, and keep on top of the admin side of the business. He quickly realised that his client base wasn't growing all that fast, so he hired a part-timer to manage day-to-day client activities while he began attending more business networking events and reaching out to new clients.
And that's a great story, Alex, and a scenario that a lot of small business owners can relate to. Although it may feel like you're losing touch with your business if you're not in the thick of it, you have to understand that taking a step back is integral to the growth of your business. Putting time in and effort into activities like networking, sourcing new clients, learning about processes to streamline your business are what will achieve business growth, rather than day-to-day activities that keep it running.
And that's a good point, Ben. Growing the business is more than just hiring the right staff. It involves defining your business strategy. As we discussed in our last webinar, this means mapping out strategies for operations, management, and marketing. And you can check out that webinar at our Prospa portal for more information. If you hope to earn a role as a trusted finance partner, then learning about the challenges experienced by small business owners is extremely important. You have to know what makes them tick. Another name for this process is discovery.
I couldn't agree more, and I don't think discovery is an exercise that can ever be finished. To be able to add value to our small business customers, you need to be constantly attuned to what's going on in their world at all levels. You need to be across the macroeconomic factors like tax breaks and business confidence, as well as things going on in their industries, suburbs, and backyards. Educate yourself on the seasonal factors that impact how they operate and make money. Know when your clothing retailer client is likely to need increased cash flow to hire new staff during the busy Christmas trading period, or when your tradie client will need a loan to upgrade their equipment for larger construction jobs. It's a continual learning process, but there's a huge upside to doing discovery. The key is to switch the focus from the product that you're marketing to your customer, that is financial aid, to focusing more on the economic and business development issues that your customers are facing. It's simple, really. Discovery enables you to formulate robust insights about the business of your clients, and that leads to the best solutions possible.
So, the aim of discovery is to eliminate hunches and subjective views and instead create sound, defensible, customised proposals. Right, and I'd also like to suggest that you aren't the only one who should be discovering. You create real value for your clients by helping them discover things too. You also help your client discover what they really need. In a lot of cases, we believe our dream clients already know what they need. But in more cases, you can create value for them through the selling process by helping them discover new possibilities, new ways to get bigger and better outcomes, and new opportunities. You can help them do things in a whole new way.
Okay, Alex, so what's the best way to start the discovery process?
The easiest way to start the process is doing some reading and research. Websites like Smart Company and Inside Small Business are both great places to start educating yourself about the challenges small business owners face and learning more about trends in the industry. You may be shocked to find out your clothing retailer is facing a threat from the launch of Amazon in Australia, or that your tradies industry is booming due to an increased demand in residential construction. While research is a good starting point, the best way for brokers to truly understand the needs of small businesses is to talk to small business customers. Take the time to chat to your clients about any challenges they may be facing. You may even want to send out a survey to automate that process. It's only by learning to stand in our customers' shoes that you can properly appreciate the challenges they're facing and see the opportunities that you have to add value and provide timely solutions. Many business people often aren't aware of the full range of finance options that are available to them. So it may be a matter of educating them about the difference between an unsecured loan and a line of credit, for example. It's about discussing their situation and requirements and helping them to determine what makes best sense for their particular set of circumstances.
A big benefit of becoming more deeply involved in the process is that it can enable you to lean forward and plan for customers' finance requirements into the future, as well as in the present.
You're talking about being proactive in anticipating trends and providing customers with scenarios and solutions, aren't you, Ben? Rather than just reacting to needs that they've already identified for themselves.
Yes, that's right, Alex. Becoming a trusted partner of that process early on can be absolutely a great way to add value to small business customers. Why not put together a small fact sheet that your small business customer would find useful? Or send them links to small business seminars and events. You need to remember to go out of your way to show your small business customers that you care. It's a way you can really differentiate yourself from the competition and establish yourself as a true partner, not just another salesperson with a product to push.
So Ben, what are a few actionable steps that our listeners can take to put themselves in their customers' shoes?
Well, there's a few, Alex. Firstly, starting with today, make a list of 3 industry publications you should be reading about small business. Like we mentioned, Inside Small Business and Smart Company are a great place to start. Put some time aside to read at least 2 articles a week. You can also create custom feeds through sites like Feedly, which will collate relevant articles for you. Then tomorrow you can begin drafting a survey to send out to your small business clients. Ask them questions that give them the opportunity to write down any challenges they may be encountering. Keep it simple, make it a one-page document with a few multiple choice questions and maybe 2 or 3 long-form questions. You'll be able to read through the results just in time for your next face-to-face with the client.
We've also developed a fact sheet for you to use that will help you go through the discovery process in a systematic way. It's available for you to download from our partner portal. Fill in as much as you can for each customer from external sources. Respect that your small business owner is time poor, but get the rest by talking to them. Don't make assumptions, ask questions, even if it takes a bit of time to get all the answers. In summary, here are the questions to ask. Ask why. What's their story? Why did they start their business? What did they do before? What business experience do they have? What were they hoping to achieve when they started their business? Ask about their product or service. What makes it special? Their target audience and their competition. Ask about their industry, things like seasonality, regulations, and macroeconomic trends. Ask about their business model, how many years in operation, revenue over time, employees, staff turnover, major customers and suppliers. And finally, ask their plans for the future and how they'll think they'll get there, their dreams, goals, marketing plans, business plans, and so on. We think point 3, about their industry, is so important from a financial perspective that we're planning our next webinar on that very subject, but more on that at the end of this one.
Small business owners want a knowledgeable, trusted partner rather than just a broker. Wouldn't you agree, Alex?
Definitely, Ben. Talking to small business owners in our network, we've noticed that they're time poor and stretched thin. In big business, you've got specialists for everything, but your small business owner is wearing half a dozen hats at once. They're often the go-to person for everything, even when they're employing a few staff. What's appealing to them is solutions that save time and suit their circumstances. Someone they view as a knowledgeable and trusted partner is in a good place to provide those solutions. One of the clients we spoke to for this webinar has been in the market for advice on expanding his business. He wanted more information on how he might finance that growth. In his words, he tells us that the sort of person he feels comfortable working with is someone who can really hear and really understand his business. He said rapport and knowledge were very important to him, and you can read his comments up there on the slide.
And as we've discussed today, cash flow and access to finance are huge issues for small business owners. A broker who really understands this can provide a finance solution that is tailored to the small business. Whether it's a cash management plan or a small business loan, it is a real strength.
But the only way you're going to know which is the best solution to offer is to truly understand your customer's needs. Brokers need to educate themselves with relevant information so they can help small businesses make the right decisions. It pays to attend small business events, talk to other brokers about what their customers are finding challenging, and subscribe to small business publications so you can keep abreast of industry trends. Using this information, you might want to put together a newsletter that can be sent to your small business customers, communicating key industry issues and trends that may inform their business strategy. For loyal customers, you may want to consider purchasing tickets to an industry seminar or buy them a subscription to a small business publication as a show of good faith.
So what can brokers do straight after this webinar to better help their customers?
Well, you know the industry publications we're talking about before. Choose a relevant industry to focus on and read about the latest trends in the industry. Type up those key trends and send it to your client in a quick email with an intro like, "Hey, I thought you might find this information useful." From there, you can get really specific with how to help your clients. If you have a florist, send them a roundup of markets in their area that they may want to take part in.
That's some great ideas, Alex. I think brokers should make this a part of their ongoing strategy. The email of useful tips you mentioned could be a monthly newsletter to clients. I quickly did some Googling and found a list of upcoming business events like the Newco event taking place in Sydney during March. You could easily compile these events and send them as an FYI to small business owners.
Definitely, and like we mentioned, you might want to purchase tickets as a thank you to loyal customers. I find it really helpful when people send me links to webinars or free online courses. It shows that you care about the growth of their business and you're willing to help them extend themselves and their business knowledge. So, in practical terms, Ben, what can brokers do to go that extra mile to position themselves as trusted advisors? I don't think it can be a short-term approach, can it?
No, Alex, it can't. We're talking about a long-term relationship building process here. There aren't really any shortcuts. Getting to know the customer and their business is the first step. Take the time to understand their story, their background, why they've gone into business, who they're in competition with, and what their hopes and dreams for their business are.
Providing regular information that's relevant to their business can be a really powerful way of positioning yourself as a trusted advisor in a customer's world. Giving them news about their industry or the small business sector more broadly, or government policy changes that impact on small businesses, being across these sorts of issues yourself and sharing some insights with customers, whether it's through a newsletter or a blog or even social media posts, is a great way to touch base without the hard sell. Doing it regularly maintains the connection you're trying to build with them and positions you as someone who's up to date with what's going on in the wider business world, and enables you to be someone who genuinely adds some sort of value, not someone who's just looking for another sale.
Working out the best way to stay in touch is also really important. For older customers, face-to-face contact or a phone call may be their preference. With younger people, your Gen Ys and Millennials, doing things digitally may be the way to go. You can look at catching up via Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. You may want to try tapping into their world by establishing a group and posting regularly, sparking up conversations about issues and events that are important to small business owners.
It's all about finding out when and where small business owners look for their information and advice and being present in those places. That's a key to building relationships.
I couldn't agree more, Alex. So what can brokers do this week to build those relationships?
First off, schedule in a face-to-face meeting with each of your small business clients. Create an agenda for the meeting, which will allow you to find out where they're at now and where they need help with and where they want to be in future. They'll appreciate the fact that you took time to talk to them. Secondly, research and join 3 LinkedIn groups this week that will allow you to connect with small business people and participate in discussions about small business. You'd be amazed at what you'll learn and the connections that you'll make. Finally, the last thing on your to-do list should be finding one small business networking event to attend over the next few months. There's nothing quite like an event to build your knowledge of the space as well as your referral network, and you may want to bring along a loyal client as well. We touched on earlier on the fact that small business has traditionally been seen as the backbone of the economy. Small businesses account for 45% of the employment in this country, and it's likely we'll keep seeing more of them opening up as traditional full-time jobs continue to be casualised or contracted out.
Yes, there should be no shortage of opportunities for finance professionals to build strong relationships with the millions of upcoming self-starters.
And that's great news, isn't it? Treasurer Scott Morrison noted, small businesses make a huge contribution to national prosperity and supporting Australian jobs. Small businesses play a central role in the economy. Over 2 million businesses, sole traders, partnerships, trusts and small employers have helped underpin 25 years of economic growth. In fact, small businesses are collectively the largest source of employment in Australia. They're responsible for about half of all jobs outside the financial sector. And many small businesses are also popping up in industries which have traditionally been dominated by bigger firms, lowering the barriers to entry and giving more Australians job opportunities and creating healthier competition.
And I can't stress the importance of competition as an economic driver. On that note, small businesses are also a huge source of innovation. The federal government's recently released Australian Innovation System report found that 13% of the adult population are engaged in some form of entrepreneurial activity. As opposed to working in a big business, those employed in a small business often have room to let their ideas grow. These ideas drive innovation and lead to the creation of bespoke services that bigger businesses often rely on.
And with new ideas comes new business and new opportunities for brokers to help these innovators grow their business and expand their ideas. So today we've tried to give you a snapshot of life in small business land. We've explored the highs, the lows, and the issues that are all in a day's work for small businesses we talk to every day.
So here are the key takeaways. You'll see these listed on the screen. Small business is often said to be the backbone of the Australian economy. However, 60% of small businesses cease operating 3 years or less after starting up. The most common reasons for failure include poor strategic management and inadequate cash flow. The entrepreneurial myth: most owners are technicians or not entrepreneurs, and they find running a business much harder than they thought it would be. Small business owners therefore want help, which you are well placed to provide. The key challenges for small business owners include cash flow management, being time poor, and getting help they can trust. Businesses that succeed have an owner with a good grasp on the financials, defined business strategies, and owners who understand the need to work on growing the business rather than in the business. Stand in your customer's shoes. It's the only way to truly get to know them and understand their needs. Go through the process of discovery. There are no shortcuts. Educate yourself about the small business industry so you can better help your customers. Stay informed by reading blogs, attending events, and talking to your customers about their challenges. Go beyond your customers' expectations. Maintain relevant contact and be present. And lastly, the future is bright.
And by developing a deeper understanding of small businesses, including their operations and the markets they play in, we can all anticipate and respond to their needs more effectively. And by educating